Welcome, Power fans. We're back with our latest recap of episode 2, Raising Kanan, entitled Flip Mode. Before we begin, just to let you know, I'm recapping every single Power episode this season. Make sure to turn on your notifications and like and subscribe to make sure you don't miss any of the recaps. Posting every Friday right after the episode airs. So, where are we? 2 episodes into the season. The main thing we're seeing now is Rock is trying to fight against her nature. She is a hustler at heart. This is what she spent her entire life doing, but now she's trying to get out of the game. She's almost like a born again Christian, trying to make everything right, leave her past behind, let everybody know she's saved and all that, which is great. But, when you're surrounded by everybody that's been affected by what you've been putting in place, the last decade plus, it's going to be extremely hard for her to remove herself from this environment and stay clean. The first thing up is her connects. She tries to tell Stefano, I'm out of the game. You know, it's not my concern anymore. She gets kidnapped from her place with Unique, and Stefano tells her that you got one last job, or before you ride off into the sunset, I need you to kill Sal. And the main thing that stood out to me is how this scene was framed. If you look at them talking, there's fire in the background. To me, that symbolizes that once this act is committed, all hell is going to break loose. Just the words that he's using. Stefano is not really a character that I think you can trust, because he tried to sell this to her as, all the bosses want Sal gone, but we can't kill each other, blah, blah, blah. That's nonsense. What that tells me is that Stefano doesn't have the backing of the commission or whoever else, is in the other crime families. And he's doing this on his own. And he's using a trick that we've seen before of using, black assassins to kind of throw the scent off. Crazy Joe Gallo, for you historians, did something similar back in the 70s, but that's not going to work. I think Rock has too much heat on her. We already know this big battle that happened where all these Italians were dying, in these in Rock's territory at the end of last season. So her name is already ringing out probably in the mafia community. So when Sal gets killed, and obviously everybody saw, they don't know Marvin's name, but they know it was a black man that killed Sal. All the attention is going to go back on her and her family. So I think this act puts her family in more danger than what we saw last season. So that means Lou, Marvin, and even Kanan, because I don't think Sal's people are just going to be completely out the picture now, even with their boss taken out of the picture. So I think things are going to get even worse, and it's going to be harder for Rock to live up to her mantra of trying to get out of the game. Secondly, the other issue was the Spanish crew. She tried to tell them, I'm out the game too. I'm gonna talk about Juliana in a second because she's a trip. Yeah, her brother, took her at her word and said fine, but he's not convinced either. He knows Rock's nature, and he knows how dangerous she is when she gets crossed or when she gets threatened, any type of danger. So he knows that, it's only going to take one misstep on somebody's part to set her off and, get her back in the game, looking for vengeance. And he's basically trying to warn her sister that you're in danger of doing that. You need to chill out, stop antagonizing her, and let her just leave if that's what she wants to do. Juliana is very, she's one of those characters that, she's just a trip because, Rock saved your life, got rid of your abusive husband, and here you are sitting in your chair, throwing shots, being completely ungrateful. Rock is not really your enemy, but I think what Juliana's issue is, number one, she's not used to having power. We see that a lot with people who are not used to that. Middle managers who have power trips, things like that. She doesn't know how to wear the crown. That's the first issue. And then the other issue is I think she secretly resents Rock because Rock is a woman that she wants to be, as far as being in control of her life, having complete autonomy, not having to answer to no one. She resents that, and she lashes out in these little ways which are completely unnecessary. It's probably going to end up getting her killed. I don't know how that's going to happen. I don't know if Stefano is going to end up approaching them if Rock becomes a problem or doesn't want to get out the game later on or gets too involved with Unique. But to me, Juliana is going to do something stupid that's going to get her killed. Just the way she was fidgeting in that chair and the way she was drinking. She doesn't know how to leave well enough alone. So keep an eye on her as the season goes on. I see her doing something stupid that's going to end up with her catching a bullet. So we'll see what happens with her. Um, Switching gears a little bit, the other thing that I noticed with Rock's character is the fact that she spends so much of her life hustling and cultivating that environment and that business acumen that she really doesn't know how to be a mother. She really doesn't know how to completely interact with her family as not the boss, as far as delegating and passing out orders. When you see how she's trying to reconcile with Kanan, what is she doing? She's trying to buy her way back into his good graces, gets him a brand new car. And now we're seeing this relationship mirror what we saw in the last couple seasons with Ghost and Tariq. The reason Tariq has so much disdain for Ghost, primarily above anything, was the fact that Ghost wasn't being honest with him. That's all he wanted because, all the money and everything is good, but if I don't have your trust, I can't depend on you and I have no faith in you as a parent. And we see that replay with Rock. If Rock just told the truth, like she did with Lou, and just admitted that I made a mistake with Scrap, I'm going to have to live with this every day, something like that could start rebuilding her relationship with Kanan. But she just refuses to take that step and make herself vulnerable to her child and admit that I don't have all the answers and I make mistakes. I miss you. I want you. She just cannot go that route. She can't go there, and part of it is because of her upbringing. We see these cycles over and over again. She can't just bring herself to do that because, you see it with Laverne, as soon as you open up, you feel like you're going to be attacked and it's going to be taken advantage of you. Even though that's not going to be the case with your own son, she just can't bring herself to do it. Kanan sees it and he's just like, I'm just tired of the lies and the continuous lies. Stay away from me. So he's off on his own again. Him and Famous might have a new deal going on with this courier thing. Sounds interesting, but we know this Detective Malcolm came driving by. So I think at some point he's going to bust all that up. They're going to, get a little bit of work and start getting some traction. And then either he's going to come in and tax them or try and get Kanan to stop hustling, period. So we'll see where that goes. But once again, with this episode, Kanan is more so in the background, not really as interesting storyline wise as what everyone else has going on. Not really a problem at this point, but it's still kind of weird, to have this be technically his show and him being more of a background character and not really driving the plot, so to speak. Um, Mentioned Detective Howard, Malcolm Howard. He's come full circle. Remember Omar Epps, you've probably seen the famous meme from Juice, where he's looking at Tupac, Tupac had killed Raheem, came to the wake, hugging the mother and everything, how scandalous that was. Well, here we have Omar's character standing up at Burke's funeral after shooting his partner in the head, you know, eulogizing her about how great of a cop she was, how much she made him a better cop and a better person. It's just complete scumbag behavior. He's the most crooked cop in the division. And here's the chief coming to him saying, we got to keep this under wraps, all this dirt with Detective Burks. Keep your eye out as far as if you hear anything else. I need to hear that before you. He's sitting there nodding his head and everything. But of course, when you do dirt like that, you're completely paranoid. And we notice Detective Howard, he's looking around, he's paranoid, internal affairs is around, he's not trusting anyone. But now he has someone that he can zero in all that angst on. And that's the other detective, Adina, I think her last name was Foyle, you know, uh, Detective Burke's ex, now after shunning Burke and now that she's dead, now she's feeling completely guilty and she's going to make it her life's mission to try and redeem Burke's name. So Malcolm saw that coming a mile away. You saw he was staring daggers at her at that funeral when she tried to talk to Detective Burke's father. So right now she's not getting any traction from anyone. No one trusts her. They look at her as almost as corrupt as Detective Burke's because they were so close. but she's going to keep digging. We know that for sure. I don't know what type of evidence she might be able to find. We talked about this before in my recap last week. We don't know if there were any cameras on any of those streets. Something is not going to add up with the evidence. Possibly the gun. Where did the gun come from? I don't think there's any witnesses because they would have came out by now, but she's going to start digging and she's going to find something, and that's going to put her in the crosshairs of Malcolm. Now, what I think is going to happen at this point, because Malcolm has the whole department on his side, I think he's going to start slowly building the case against Adina. And when she pushes too far, he's going to set her up possibly for Burks's death. I think that might be his end game to get her completely out of the paint. Because I think as long as that's hanging out there, he's going to be a little bit paranoid. Even though right now it's ruled a suicide, if she keeps digging, he's going to find some way to set her up either for that death or something else that Burks was tied to make her look corrupt and get her probably her badge taken away too. So we'll see how treacherous Detective Malcolm will be getting in these next couple episodes. I said in the last recap that I think eventually it's going to blow up in his face, but that's going to be way down the line towards the end of this season or possibly the beginning of next season. I didn't see this detective, Adina, coming back in the picture. So with her back in the picture, she could potentially be the fall guy and give Malcolm a little bit more grace period to kind of run amok out in these streets. But we'll see where that goes with his storyline. As I've been saying, I think Laverne, her character, she's like the heart and soul of the show, especially with this season. All of kind of the tender moments are coming from her. She's really still trying to find herself. Now she might be enrolling in the military, but she's going to give one last shot of trying to make this music thing work by auditioning for this girl group. Now, I think this can be a really good storyline. For those of you who are too young, in the 90s, we had so many iconic girl R&B groups. They mentioned En Vogue on the show. En Vogue was a little bit older, a little bit more refined, kind of mid to late 20s. As far as Laverne's age, you had groups like SWV that were out. You had TLC. The difference being that I would say more SWV as far as Laverne goes, because she's a pure singer. She has the singing chops to really blow. And I think that will be a very compelling storyline if they kind of go through that entire process of getting in a group, maybe becoming the star of the group, having some friction in the group and still trying to make it work. And this gives something for Lou to do. Lou is just, he seemed like he was not long for this show. He's getting in fights with waiters, drinking constantly, not doing anything, just sitting around moping. But now he has focus again. Now he knows I can kind of make this right with Laverne. I gave her a song away. He apologized for that. And he seems gung-ho and trying to make her pop now. So now potentially maybe he restarts the business with Laverne as the franchise artist. So that would be a great storyline for both of them. And it would keep Lou out of danger too. Because I feel like after that last confrontation with Rock, it's not really, kind of realistic for him to get back into the game. So this can keep him occupied and away from everything. And actually it might, help Rock kind of see somebody away from the game and flourishing and away from her and flourishing to give her more confidence that I can stay out of the game and potentially make something of myself, as my other family members are trying to do. So I'm hoping Laverne, everything works out with her. But with all that said, Laverne has been getting hit with like the most devastating things that can happen. You losing the love of your life. So I unfortunately think something else devastating is going to be happening to Laverne this season. Hopefully it's not getting picked for this girl group. I do want her to get that win and start getting recognized in the neighborhood for her talents. But we'll see where that goes. But I'm optimistic about Laverne's heartbreak not happening, at least until probably the end of the season or second half of the season. But loving what we're seeing with Laverne's character. She's showing the most emotional depth so far, and I really love what the actress has been doing with her. So kudos to Laverne and the actress name. I want to say Haley Dixon is in my head, but if I get your name wrong, I'm so sorry. But been loving Laverne's character. Let's see, who have we missed? Oh, Unique. Let me talk about Unique. So I think I might have been selling Unique a little short last episode, kind of talking about how much of a hothead he was and how he's not built for someone like Rock. But really, this episode, he kind of showed his diplomacy and his tact. He basically completely wooed Stefano, gave his credentials, and now he might be able to get an audience with Stefano's peoples as far as his connects. So he's really moving up the food chain now. Didn't throw Rock under the bus or anything, so that was good to see. I don't know how that dynamic is going to be. I don't know how much he's going to tell Rock. That's what I want to see as far as where the relationship is going, because he did mention at the beginning of the episode while he's feeding her ice cream that they've been hanging tough for 2 weeks. I know that's not a long time, but we know a lot of pillow talking can happen within 2 weeks. So is he going to tell Rock all these conversations he's been having with Stefano? If he doesn't, how is Rock going to take that? Is she going to look at him as like, okay, this is another man trying to, take my spot, stab me in the back? So is that going to put Unique in Rock's crosshairs once she finds out about this? Because she will at some point. It's better if he just tells her. The other subplot is this guy, Ronnie, his brother, who I do not think is going to make it to the end of the season because he is just a relic, but he's almost like Michael Myers in the flesh, just brooding around, doesn't want anybody touching him, doesn't have any vices, which to me makes him really dangerous. You can't woo him with alcohol, can't woo him with drugs. Women he doesn't care about, doesn't want to get touched. He stares at the TV at night with the TV not turned on. So complete psycho. And we haven't seen him in action yet. We saw him glaring at that bodyguard. So probably next episode, that bodyguard is getting chopped up or something, but we're going to find out how scary and how dangerous Ronnie can be. Now, if Unique can channel that into having him be, an underling or a hitman or something like that, now Unique is in a really good position. Ronnie needs to be the muscle, but at this point, it doesn't sound like he'll listen to anybody. That's kind of the biggest problem. So that's why I don't see him lasting this season, because he's too much of a loose cannon. Already he's just not acting right, and he hasn't even been put into the game, so to speak. Unique is kind of keeping him on the periphery, saying he's not going to be in the home soon and all that. But I don't know if Ronnie is really the one to take orders, especially from his younger brother. So I'm looking for him to really kind of cause a lot of chaos this season. He's just really a chaos agent, just with no concern for anyone else. Jail broke him, so I can't imagine what he was getting into in there. So that's, Ronnie's storyline. I guess the last thing to touch on would be this big assassination at the end. Totally ridiculous. Classic Power. You know how Power is. If you put a hat on, no one can recognize you. Sal is coming out of the church after a christening, surrounded by bodyguards, and here is a random postal worker sitting on the steps that no one takes a second look at. He's able to walk completely up in front of a group of people, shoot Sal in the back of the head, run into the church while the other or kill the bodyguard too, one of them. And then you have the other bodyguard shooting at him point blank range. Everybody misses. He's able to run the length of the church, get out the back, and then escape in a commandeered postal truck driven by a paralyzed man that he used to have beef with. Classic Power. Classic Power. You can't get more ridiculous than that. So scene was hilarious, for the reason I just mentioned. But I do think it puts Marvin in the crosshairs with more of this mafia business. I know they might not recognize his name, but they know his face. Sal's people, hit his spot at the end of last season to try and take him out. So I don't think this is the end of it with Sal's people or even the other mafia organizations. Like I mentioned earlier, I don't think Stefano told them the full truth. I don't think necessarily that the other crime families are on board with this killing. So that can lead to a whole nother mess, because one of theirs got touched by black gangsters. And we know how the mafia will feel about that. So interesting subplot going on. It's cool. They also mentioned some of the actual real life mafia figures from that time. They mentioned Bonanno, from the Bonanno family, also based in Brooklyn, I believe. Yes. So a lot of storylines that they can touch on there. But Stefano and Unique, I want to see where that goes. If they push Rock out, if Rock gets them both set up, if she decides not to completely get out the game. But I think Rock is going to play this whole I'm in the game or I'm not in the game for probably until about mid season. And it's going to take something catastrophic to happen to get us the old Rock, which I think is going to be somebody dying. I think it's going to be one of the brothers, either Marvin or Lou. Um, if I had to guess, I'd love for Marvin to stay around. He's a great character, but I think it would hurt Rock more to see something happen to him, and it would be more devastating as well, since he's finally getting back on the same page with Laverne. And we see how cold Laverne was when she became an adult and became, jukebox. So I think probably what made her so cold was potentially losing both her parents. So if I had to pick between which brothers are getting taken out this season, it might be Marvin, because Marvin is doing the most dirt, really, at this point. Lou is kind of out the game at this point. But we're very early. Second episode. Want to wrap this up. Let me know what you guys thinking. Who's the characters that are really kind of capturing your attention at this point? For me, it's Laverne. I think she's the most kind of multifaceted at this point as far as trying to move on from the trauma from season two. And the only one that really kind of has true hope, for the future, which unfortunately I think is not going to work out for her. But that's kind of the biggest character I've been paying attention to so far. We'll be back next week to cover episode 3. Like I've been saying, make sure you subscribe, turn on your notifications so you don't miss any of these recaps. They'll be going live roughly a few minutes after the episode airs. After the episode ends at midnight on Fridays. This will be Saturday morning, well, Friday morning, actually. So, yes, Friday morning, a little bit after the episode airs. So, thank you for tuning in, and I will see you guys next week and enjoy your weekend.